Well, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Canadian Football Fanatics YouTube channel. And thank you guys for tuning in to another video. Ah, deep, long, hard sigh, folks, as we are coming off a Western final won by the Saskatchewan Roughriders by a score of 24-21 over the BC Lions, as you guys can see below me on the screen right there. And folks, oh man, from a BC Lions perspective, is this a disappointing one? Often on our post-game reports, we try to say that this is a little bit of therapeutic, which it will be, I believe, tonight. But make no mistake about it, folks. The BC Lions go into the offseason in one of the most disappointing ways, I think, because there were so many opportunities for the Lions to win this ball game, to punch their ticket to the Grey Cup, first time since 2011. And ultimately, they just shot themselves in the foot late, had the ball, a few times under 3 minutes to go, and were unable to get anything going. But as I mentioned, you know, therapeutic. You could say in some ways we definitely are going to talk about some of the negatives, and I think we do. We should and have to shine a little bit of light on them and kind of put them to bed and put the season to bed a little bit. But just can't think of any other word but disappointing for the BC Lions, as they had every opportunity, every chance to win, to go into Saskatchewan during the West Final and walked away victorious. And they're going to fall 3 points short on this one. So before we do get into the ball game and give you guys our final BC Lions post game report of the season, if you guys are enjoying all the content here on the channel and this video specifically, please be sure to leave a like on the video. Comment down below, let us know how disappointed you are, maybe some positivities. We're definitely going to find some positives and some silver linings throughout the game and throughout the season to talk about throughout our report tonight. But there's definitely going to be some negatives as well to talk about. But as I mentioned, comment down below, subscribe to the channel. When you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys get notified each time we go live or upload a video just like this one right here. Of course, you guys can find us on our social media platforms at _CF Fanatics on Twitter and at Canadian Football Fanatics on Instagram, as well as we near 4,000 followers on Instagram. So if you guys are watching this video currently, head over to our Instagram, hit follow if you aren't already, and hopefully you guys are maybe lucky number 4,000 as we near 4K, which will be a very cool milestone. So let's get into it. As always, we kind of usually bounce around at times throughout the post game report, especially in a loss. I feel like that kind of comes with the territory, where there's a lot of frustrating things to kind of talk about, and you can kind of get a little bit distracted and kind of bounce all over here and there. And we're definitely going to do so tonight in our thoughts, because there's definitely quite a bit to talk about in this one. But I feel like we should probably start from in from start to finish is what I'm trying to say, folks. Here is so I apologize, as I am a little bit distracted, as there is the I believe it's a 40th birthday going on upstairs. So there's some dancing, there's some singing going on upstairs. I hope you guys aren't hearing any of that. But let's start from the start of the game and work our way towards the end. And both teams came out pretty slow for the most part, if we're being honest. Both Saskatchewan and BC. BC getting the ball first out of the gate. They started off very slow. I believe in the game, 8 2-and-outs or something like that. Probably had 3 or 4 of them in the first quarter alone. And BC, as well as Saskatchewan, as I mentioned, came out slow. BC, you could kind of sense a little bit of maybe some, I don't know about nervousness. I don't know if that's the right word, but you could definitely sense that Nathan Rourke was a little bit jacked up. He was missing a couple balls, overthrown his receivers by, a good, not overthrown by, a step or two, overthrown them by, 5-10 yards. Could tell he was a little bit jacked up, as well as the receivers who, we'll talk about them and their drops throughout the game that I thought were pretty costly at times. But could definitely tell that maybe the Lions were feeling the moment a little bit to start the football game. But no harm, no foul, as the Riders were slow out of the gates as well. Specifically, Trevor Harris, I thought he missed some throws as well. The Riders were really unable to do anything for 28 minutes of the first half, if we're being honest. They had 1 point on the scoreboard due to an early rouge. But other than that, I mean, it was blanks for the most part for the BC Lions defense in the first half. The Riders were able to get on the board with a field goal to end the first half. But as I mentioned, from that point, other than that drive and that scoring possession, the Lions defense did their thing in the first half. Were able to get the Riders off the field. One negative that you could say throughout the first half, most definitely, and in the game, is that they were unable to affect the run game and get AJ Ouellette negative plays. Ouellette was effective throughout the game entirely, rushed for over 100 yards. I believe he was 17 carries, 113 yards, 6.6 yards per carry. Ouellette was very effective for them all game and was definitely a what was kind of the only positive for them for the most of the first half, as I mentioned, until their field goal to go into the locker room, feel a little bit better about themselves. But for the most part, from a slow first half perspective, it felt like the Lions went into the locker room, you know, with a win in quotation marks, right? Obviously, you didn't have a pretty first half by any means, but you did have the one big positive, which was the 103-yard scoring drive where Nathan Rourke led the offense down the field from the shadows of their own goalpost. Were able to pick up numerous first downs, some first downs in some second and long situations that they were able to do throughout the game as well, and get into field scoring position, as I mentioned, excuse me, and then cap it off with a Nathan Rourke rushing touchdown, one of two on the game for Nathan Rourke on the ground, and was, as I mentioned, kind of the point in where it would have been much better if they were able to get a stop and go into the half at 7-1. It kind of felt like the Riders went in with a little bit more positivity than they could have, but make no mistake about it, I think the BC Lions were the better team in the first half, especially because it showed on the scoreboard with that 7-4 score heading into half. So both teams went into halftime wanting to make their adjustments, wanting to make their corrections, and hit the ground hit the ground running is what I'm trying to say. Going into the third quarter, and that was exactly what the Saskatchewan Roughriders did. They started out fast with getting points right away and kind of punched the BC Lions in the mouth per se, and let them know that this isn't going to be an easy first half, except second half, and they're not just going to roll over and give them the game. That they're going to be here to fight, and this is going to come down to the wire, and which it did. So, I mean, ton to talk about in the second half in terms of missed opportunities, some positivities that the Lions offense came to life. It then died. The BC Lions defense got numerous stops, then it didn't at the biggest time. So there is a ton to talk about, a ton of different directions to talk about in the second half. The first half, for the most part, was fairly boring and not much to talk about, if we're being honest. So put to bed the first half very quickly and move into the second half. Riders get on the board to start the third quarter, and the BC Lions didn't necessarily respond right away. They go through a little bit of the third quarter until they were able to force a turnover on defense, and that was a huge turnover. That was, an interesting talking point for myself heading into this one. I made a little clip kind of leading into this game that this could possibly be the last time we see TJ Lee as well as Gary Peters in a BC Lions uniform, two of the biggest household names in Lee and Peters over the last 10 years for the Lions. And win or lose, now we know the result was lose. This could have been their last game in the orange and black. Now that we know it is, definitely a bittersweet farewell, as those fellas gave us numerous years of service, high level play, kind of keeping that tradition going throughout some of those darker years as they stuck around, continued to buy into the plan and buy into wanting to be BC Lions and turn this thing around, which they were a part of from, as I mentioned, some of those dark years and then turning things around. You could definitely tell, and at times you have to give TJ Lee his kudos. This year he came in, he did his job. He was definitely a huge spark off the couch, if you want to say it, throughout the first half of the season. Not picked up by a team, let go by the BC Lions going into the offseason, isn't picked up going into the season or during the season. Lions are in a pinch at 5-7. they end up giving him the call, the veteran, and he comes in and is able to do his job, as I mentioned, be that voice in the locker room, be that leader, teach the young guys a thing or two, and make a play throughout the way as well. And he makes a big play in this game that is unfortunately probably going to be overshadowed by some of the missed opportunities from the BC Lions in the second half. There was a lot of positives. Nathan Rourke as well was Houdini at times out there. TJ Lee, big play. And for the most part, it's going to be all for naught. I know there's going to be a couple clips I probably make that will be remembered, and Nathan Rourke will have a few plays at least. But other than that, for the most part, they're always going to remember the result more so than the plays, especially the athletes and players will say that first and foremost. So, TJ Lee was fantastic to see him make a play on AJ Ouellette as he punched the football out of his hands, and didn't even almost look like he punched the football. It almost looked like he tried to punch it, peanut the famous saying of the peanut punch, but it was kind of a combination of the peanut punch as well as him grabbing at the football and wanting to almost take the football away, and he was able to force the football loose. And I believe it was Dwayne Hendricks who jumped on the loose football and give BC possession of the ball, which was fantastic at the time. It looked like, oh my goodness, this was the play that they needed to swing momentum back in their direction in the second half. They drive down the field after once again picking up multiple second and longs, conversions, and get into scoring range inside the 10-yard line, inside the red zone, deep in Riders territory, and they squander this opportunity big time. I think you could put 50-50 blame on both parties. Blame that this needed to be a better ball by Nathan Rourke, that needed to be on his front shoulder, and blame on Keon Hatcher that, yes, even though it was a tough catch, it hit him both in both hands, and he needed to come down with this football. But it ends up going in the air, and man, the BC Lions lead in fluky interceptions. It's unbelievable how many they've had, especially against Saskatchewan, 2 in the last 2 years. Um, but they squandered that opportunity to get points, which was a super costly one for the BC Lions, as 7 points lost. Ultimately, they did get a stop on defense, so it wasn't a 7-point swing. It's a kind of a wash, if you will. But other than that, for the most part, after the Riders started out hot, it was kind of a few punts going back and forth until we got into the fourth quarter, and that's when Nathan Rourke really woke up. He really started to make some phenomenal plays, just unbelievable breaking tackles, getting the ball out somehow, finding receivers downfield, and doing everything he could to give his team an opportunity to win. You pair those missed opportunities within the first half with the missed field goal, drops and all that stuff, with the inability to capitalize on the turnover, and this is kind of the recipe that you get. You get a 3-point loss when you had multiple opportunities to win throughout the game. I am curious. One big thing going into this one for me to keep an eye on was that the effectiveness, or the um I guess the strategy behind the rushing attack and James Butler not coming in totally 100%, comes in with the game time decision tag. And for me, for the most part, looked like he was effective, looked as close to James Butler as possible, looked as close to the 100%, if we're being honest. But I'm very curious how healthy he really was. Wasn't very effective. You could say he was effective, but I don't know if maybe they went to him as much, and I don't think the game really called for it. With 12 carries, 58 yards, 4.8 yards per carry, also chipped in with 5 catches for 43 yards. So over 100 yards, over 100 yards total on 17 touches. So not a bad outing, you could say, I guess, but I guess compared to the 6.6 yards per carry from AJ Ouellette, would have been a little bit better, and just, I guess, begs the question if he was completely healthy or not. You obviously seen that Xander Horvath didn't get much of a look. I believe he was, only got the 1 carry for 7 yards, so not too much of a look. Also came up kind of on the short end of things. Was arguably, I don't know if it was a missed block per se, but didn't have the greatest block on a quarterback draw late. But I mean, I guess that's what we can kind of get into to end things here, is that the BC Lions had an opportunity. twice with the ball with under 3 minutes to go, and they just couldn't find a way to get a first down, and I think is the most disappointing considering how great of a season they had offensively. Led the league in points per game with over 30. Led the league in net yards per game over 400. 25% of their touchdown drives resulting in 25% of their drives resulting in touchdowns. You name it, they led the CFL in major statistical offensive categories this season. They had a phenomenal first year under Buck Pierce as head coach and offensive play caller. But when it mattered, man, they could not come up with a critical, crucial first down, and that cost them in this one, and arguably cost them the game. We'll get into it in a little bit when the missed opportunities. But as we get into it, they are unable to pick up first downs. They go 2-and-out on back-to-back drives to end after Nathan Rourke's phenomenal "It's our time" touchdown run after finding Keon Hatcher for his 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns. Look like, man, this is going to be Nathan Rourke's kind of legacy fourth quarter, and unfortunately, it's going to be majorly overshadowed by not being able to finish the job late with 2 possessions, 2 cracks to pick up just a few first downs, and they're unable to. They give the ball back to Trevor Harris after Corey Mace got a ton of flack. They kick a field goal to cut it to, I believe, the 21-21, and they give BC back possession of the football with that 21-17 lead with, I don't know, 3 minutes to go, and instead of going for the touchdown, that turns out to be the right call by Corey Mace and a huge decision for the Saskatchewan Roughriders that they're able to come on the right side of it, get 2 stops, trust their defense, which they've done all season. Just as the Lions have been the best offense, the Riders have arguably been the best defense all season, only surrendering, I think, like 22 points a game, which is a league best as well. Only surrendering, I think, like 7 touchdown drives, I think 17% of the time or something like that. And unfortunately, they do the right thing. They get 2 stops, give their offense the opportunity with about a minute to go, and Trevor Harris surgically marches them down the field. And Trevor Harris, I think he had a fairly decent game, but by no means was it special. By no means was it great or phenomenal, any of those words. I wouldn't use any of those words to describe Trevor Harris's game, but he did his job, made the throws when it counted, especially in this last drive, and ultimately led his team into the end zone with a Tommy Neal touchdown. Have to give a shout out to the Riders, Canadian receivers. You love to see it in a big game when they come up huge like that. Tommy Neal obviously catching the game-winning touchdown, but Sammy Emlis, 9 catches, 100 yards receiving, was a big-time weapon for the Riders offense, was arguably, the go-to guy for the Riders throughout this game. And then Keon Schaefer-Baker came up huge in this game as well, was able to walk away with the 1 touchdown and a few crucial catches throughout this one as well. So got to give a hat tip, huge kudos and shout out to those Canadian receivers, those trio of Canadian receivers that stepped up for the Riders and were effective for them in this one. And Tommy Neal from Trevor Harris is your game winner, folks. So 24-21, the Riders will advance and play the Montreal Alouettes next Sunday in Winnipeg. Whoo-wee! Could you imagine those Bomber fans and how hot they are after this one? That the 2 teams to knock them off, I guess you could say, and not even knock them off, I guess, as the Riders weren't able to do that last year, but the Riders kind of stealing their Western Division crown this year, representing in the Grey Cup, and then Montreal being the team that knocked them out and also beat them in the 2024 Grey Cup, or 2023 Grey Cup, excuse me, as well. So, oh boy, is that a interesting storyline to follow, that Saskatchewan and Montreal are going to Winnipeg, and the Bombers fans and a lot of those home fans will have to watch that one. I'm going to be curious to see who they'll be rooting for. I imagine they'll be loud and proud in their Bomber blue and gold. That being said, though, I mean, this is a disappointing one, folks. As I said, there's going to be some positives, some silver linings, me to try to spin some things as positively as I can, but do not get it mistaken. This is a massive disappointment, and just I can't say it, and I don't know if I don't know how to describe it any more than just missed opportunities for the BC Lions at every turn during this one. So we'll get into a few storylines that I want to take away from this one and heading into the off season. Of course, folks, if you guys are enjoying 20 minutes in, please be sure to leave a like on today's video. Comment down below, letting us know how you guys are feeling. 20 minutes in, is this feeling a little bit better for you guys? A little bit therapeutic? Is it, are you guys able to kind of maybe get a little bit of a bigger picture for the lines going forward, or is it going to take a little bit more? Is it going to take about 25 minutes more of talking, which we're going to get into here in a second? Comment down below, let us know how you're feeling. And then, of course, subscribing to the channel. When you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys get notified each time we go live or upload a video just like this one right here. So, I mean, when you look at the numbers as well, Nathan Rourke, 20 of 30, 290 yards passing, one touchdown, one interception, which was, as I mentioned, a wash. I think you could kind of put blame on both guys. And then an area he wasn't really able to be effective in, the rushing game and being a weapon with his legs. 4 carries, 6 yards, two touchdowns. And obviously, the two touchdowns are nice, but wasn't able to hurt them in terms of yardage and I think other big moments outside of those touchdowns specifically. So Trevor Harris, 26 of 38, 305 passing and two touchdowns. Also had 3 carries for 15 yards. Those 3 carries were massive, as one of them was a big second down conversion. Another one was a big momentum one. Kind of looked like he rung his bell a little bit, like, oh man, is Trevor Harris going to lead this game in the fourth quarter? But don't make a mistake about it, folks. When those offensive linemen see it, when those young offensive weapons see that, and Trevor Harris putting his body on the line, they get fired up. They want to go play as hard as they can for their quarterback. So Trevor Harris had a big 3 carries, although it was only 15 yards and 5 yards per carry. Definitely did his part in this one. As I mentioned, James Butler, 12-58, 4.8 yards per carry, no touchdowns, receiving or rushing, as well as five receptions for 43 yards, over 100 yards total. AJ Ouellette, 17 carries, 113 yards, 6.6 yards per carry. And the BC Lions receiving core, I thought a little bit quiet for maybe the bottom three guys. I think Hatch and McInnes did their part at times. Maybe could have had a few more opportunities go their way, but Hatch after this one, 4 for 75 and a touchdown. McInnes, 4 for 68. Katoy, 4 for 55. Katoy, a couple drops that could have made this a little bit bigger for himself. Barry Hill, 2 for 23. Him as well, a couple drops. Could have been a bigger game. Eberhardt made one big catch for 26 yards. He was kind of quiet, and you would have liked to see him maybe a little bit more. And then JB, as I mentioned, the 5 for 43, but he had a few drops as well that were critical in the receiving game. One early on that kind of stalled things. And then, as I mentioned, the three Canadian receivers for the Riders that showed out in this one. Sam Amulis, 9 catches, 100 yards. Keon Schaefer-Baker, 3 catches for 56 and 1 touchdown, and was effective at moments, especially some big moments for Trevor Harris being that go-to guy for him, picking up some crucial first downs late in this one. And then Tommy Neild being the big-time player in this one, being able to catch the game winner. He finished with 3 catches, 29 yards, and 1 big touchdown, moving his Riders to the to the Grey Cup. So that kind of puts together, my initial thoughts. You could say a little quick game recap, the numbers. As I mentioned, I'm going to stick around now to kind of give you guys a few storylines to talk about in this one. And going into the off season, it's, as I said, do not make any mistake about this. This is a disappointment, and one that the BC Lions, it's going to be a tough pill to swallow. I would imagine going to bed tonight, get on the plane, going to bed tonight. Next week when they're watching the Grey Cup, going into Christmas, into the offseason when some of those dog days, some of these BC Lions, because not everyone's coming back, but whoever is on the team coming back, this is going to be what motivates them throughout the offseason, into training camp, throughout next season, is that this feels like the one that got away from them. This feels like, not to discredit the Riders by any means, not to take anything away from them, but almost in a sense that the Lions kind of, gave this one away and almost let them win in a way, but they also had their opportunities, as I mentioned, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. So for me, biggest storyline coming out of this one is the amount of missed opportunities from the BC Lions on all phases. they are unable to take advantage of the slow start from the Riders. To start the game, they have 4, 5, 6 drops to start the game, which their offense is, sluggish out of the gate with multiple 2 and outs. And then some other, crazy things in the first half. And I guess I don't know about crazy, but some other things that some other missed opportunities that didn't go the Lions' way is that Mr. Automatic, 95% field goal percentage on the regular season, Sean White misses a field goal and doesn't miss a field goal. He doinks a field goal off the right uprights, just slightly pushes the ball right. It's tracking. It looks like it's starting to go right, and then doink off the upright. No field goal. The Lions lose by 3. Huge missed opportunity there. They're also unable to capitalize in the second half off a TJ Lee turnover. Lee does a great job of punching the football out, giving the Lions a possession, and the Lions march down the field, get into the inside the Riders' 10-yard line, and they end up squandering that opportunity away with the interception by Marcus Sales. Unable to put up points on the scoreboard there. Another fluky interception that resulted in no points for the Lions. And then the biggest dagger of the missed opportunities, having the ball twice under 3 minutes to go in this ball game. All they have to do is pick up a few first downs and try to run out this clock, and they're unable to do so twice. Also, you know, didn't love the second time they have the ball with about a minute and 40 seconds to go. Not too sure how much I love the 2nd and 5 call. I understand wanting to put the ball in Nathan Rourke's hands, but to call a quarterback draw in that situation, something that I don't think you've done at all this season, is just, execution wasn't great. I thought Horvath, whether you want to say missed his block or just didn't get his block, didn't help that play. Absolutely. But I didn't think at that situation was the right time. I thought the Lions had a terrific game plan for 90% of the game, passing the football, getting Nathan Rourke out of the pocket, breaking down the Riders defense and cutting it in half. In that situation, I would have loved something like that where you gave Nathan Rourke almost the ability of a run pass option. Give him the ability to look for some options, passing the football in that second and short, second and manageable situation, or give Rourke the ability to use his legs out in space, and they're unable to do that, and was arguably their biggest missed opportunity in this one, and the Lions fall short by 3. You just, it's I don't want to say it makes me sick. I'm not going to overreact, over exaggerate like that, but just is a killer when you look back at this game and look at how many opportunities the Lions just decided to, the Riders said, here, win the game. And the Lions basically did. They said, "Oh, geez, thanks." They came with their hands out. They came with their hands out and just pushed it right back to them twice with under 3 minutes. I can't believe it. The best offense in the game. Nathan Rourke, shortly after it's our time, right to the Riders fans. It's our time in response to Trevor Harris, in response to the Riders fans. And they squandered the opportunity to punch their ticket to the Grey Cup. It's truly it's disappointing in more ways than one. And it's really hard to describe other than just saying it's disappointing. So, you know, I feel like we're about 30 minutes in. We haven't talked about too many positives. And as I mentioned, Rourke wasn't perfect in this one by any means, especially with, as I said, the 20 to 30, 290, one touchdown, one interception. Would have liked to see him maybe have 2, 3 touchdown passes. Obviously, has 2 on the ground. But for me, I mean, wow. What can you say about Nathan Rourke, ladies and gentlemen? You see the smile on my face? This kid is special. This kid is ridiculous. How many world-class plays did Rourke make tonight? It was ridiculous in the fourth quarter. Escaping pressure, breaking tackles, looking Eli Manning-esque out there. if, as I said, there is a silver lining or positive to take away from this one, if you're a BC Lions fan, Nathan Rourke is without a doubt the most outstanding player in the CFL, the best player in the league currently, and this is only the beginning of Rourke in a BC Lions fan. This is only the beginning of Rourke in a BC Lions uniform. You should hope for 5, 10, maybe 15 years of this, Nathan Rourke, that he's going to give the Lions an opportunity for many years to come, and it's going to be special, folks. I'm honestly looking forward to it. Nathan Rourke's only 27 years old. And as I said, he's doing some ridiculous stuff out there. World-class plays that are on the highlights now that are like, "Oh my goodness, how did Nathan Rourke get out of this one?" Multiple times. And as I said, folks, I believe this is truly only the beginning at 27 years old. Rourke is going to be doing this in a Lions uniform for 5 to 10 more years and give them an opportunity to win and be in these types of games for years to come. So, yes, as shitty as this feeling is right now, let's hope that this is only the start and that Nathan Rourke and the BC Lions will be back. And it will be their time very soon. For now, I mean, it's really hard to, obviously I kind of sound like a homer and want to give, credit to the Riders because they definitely deserve that credit and have earned the right to go to the Grey Cup. They've taken their trials and tribulations. They haven't been to a Grey Cup since 2013. Last year, losing to Winnipeg, been on the doorstep as well. So this, for now, this is their time, and this is rightfully so. But if we're looking forward, folks, at the outlook landscape of the Western Division moving forward, we look at a 39-year-old currently, will be what, 40 maybe by next season, if not in the season at some point. Trevor Harris for the Riders. Future uncertain. We then look at a Zach Collaros who is clearly past his due date, his prime, and is going to stick around for at least another season. You hope maybe two if you're a BC Lions fan. That's no disrespect for Zach Collaros, especially in his prime. But he looks like, the old saying that I like to use, the 1 year too early rather than 1 year too late. I think that was last year, if I'm being honest, for the Bombers. But hey, that's kind of the bed they've made, so they're going to lay in it. Obviously, have Elgersma in the wings if he is, if in his plans is to come back to the CFL if this NFL thing doesn't work. You could also say that about Curtis Rourke, although I think that's going to be a longer opportunity for him in the NFL. For the Riders, if, Harris goes anywhere, they have Rourke drafted and have his rights. We'll see if that day comes. You look at a Calgary Stampeders, and I will give the Calgary Stampeders a ton of credit and will not look past them because I think Vern Adams played good enough to win last week, gave them an opportunity to win that ball game and be in this position right here. But I don't know how much I trust the Calgary Stampeders and Vern Adams Jr. moving forward in these bigger type of games. I believe they're going to put up phenomenal regular seasons, big regular seasons, but in these big moments, are they able to get over the hump, especially versus the teams that are standing in their way? I do believe they will be one of those teams though in the West to keep an eye on, kind of battling with BC. I could see as Saskatchewan and Winnipeg kind of reload, if you will. And then Edmonton, I think Edmonton's an interesting one. I think they're going to be competitive with Cody Fajardo, but Cody Fajardo doesn't necessarily scare me. I know there's the FYJW crowd, the fuck you just watch. Excuse my language, folks, or excuse my French, but for anybody those that kind of caught the Montreal Wets Grey Cup run a few years back with Cody and him obviously being moved on from for Davis Alexander, rightfully so. Now that we've seen Alexander for a larger sample size, I kind of was one of the people at start was like, man, this is crazy bold move for the Alouettes to do so after Fajardo brought them a Grey Cup, but they've definitely made the right decision as they've gotten back to a Grey Cup once again. But Fajardo isn't necessarily one, a quarterback that strikes, fear into, I feel like anybody's eyes necessarily, right? So for the BC Lions, you have Nathan Rourke under center, wants to be here, and is your guy for years to come, and is bought into being a CFL quarterback as well, which is also super key with potentially some NFL interest after this one. So, lastly, I guess is we have to talk about the defense. I mean, The defense was arguably one of the hottest talking points throughout this season. At times was tough to watch. And then down the stretch here through the last 6, 7 games going into the playoffs, they've really turned a corner and turned things around and been able to be a very effective group, causing sacks and turnovers and doing their part. And they did so in this one. I feel like if we're being honest, there's not necessarily a silver lining if you're the defense, if you're the BC Lions in this one. But if there is one, I thought the Lions defense played good enough to win in this one, if we're being honest. As much as it's gonna hurt because when it mattered, they were unable to get a stop, and that definitely does suck with a minute to go, and they kind of, you know, watch the Riders kind of just hit them blow for blow in that final possession before finally punching it in. A tough feeling, but at the end of the day, they had a great first half. I don't know if you could say great. I don't know if you wanna say, but they had a very good first half. Did their job for the first 30 minutes without question, and in the second half, they were fine. I thought they did fine. They first forced a turnover by TJ Lee, and as I mentioned, got 2 huge stops, forcing the field goal with about 2 minutes, 3 minutes to go, then getting another stop, giving the Lions possession with a minute and 40 to go, and all the offense had to do was pick up a few first downs, and the defense looks like the hero. The defense did their job. Got off the field, gave their offense the league leading best in the CFL offense. Possession of the football with a minute and 30 to go. I don't think there's there's it's crazy to me if you think that there should be a majority of the blame or blames. I feel like is the wrong word to kind of put it. I feel like because they played good enough, I feel like to be on the outcome, especially with 24 points. The Lions scored 30 all year long. They did their job and then some in this one for me, in my opinion, anyways. But I know there's going to be some fans out there that disagree with me and think otherwise. I know that, especially with the result, this game will go largely unnoticed. But I guess some other negatives that we do have to talk about from a defensive perspective, and was unfortunate to see in the biggest game because I think they had down the stretch 22 sacks, maybe in 6 games or something like that, something crazy. You know, Betts and Levi Bell were essentially invisible in this one. Didn't register a sack, didn't really cause too much pressure around Trevor Harris. There was some at times, but as I said, Trevor Harris was able to be effective. He escaped and was able to be a scrambler for the Riders, picking up a first down or two, and was unfortunate that nobody from the interior of the defensive line for the Lions was able to be effective or have a presence really up front as well. And then they got gashed up front as well. That front seven, unable to keep Ouellette under 100 yards. So, you know, yeah, there was some positive, there was some good, but there was definitely some things that kind of overshadow the performance of the defense, and in some critical and in some crucial timing late in the game. Some of those stops, as I said, will overshadow and kind of be you know will make some of those other points forgotten about in a lot of ways. So, um, lastly, I guess on the defense is that I think as good as the end of the season was, I think there is still a lot to prove. I think there's still a lot to improve. And really, for me, nobody outside of young Jackson Finley, Robert Carter, and Betts really feels safe in my mind. I think it's arguably time to move off of veterans like Lee and Peters. Other positions in that secondary, I think, are up for debate as well. You look at linebacker. I've liked what Micah always brought to the team this season. I don't necessarily think he's a lock to be back without kind of knowing his contract situation off the top of my head. Josh Woods played fine at times this year. Ben Hladek, in rotation and kind of waiting for guys to get healthy. was fine this year, but I don't think, anything, with the way that they played for a majority of this year, nobody's safe. I feel like nothing should be off the table and wanting to get better. Mike Benavides should want to have a better group from start to finish, have a more consistent, have a more consistent group next season. If that is the play, we'll definitely get into that one in some offseason discussions. But will be interesting. I mean, you look up front, Matthew Betts. You know, we'll see what the interior looks like with guys like Tabai, Thibaut Tabai. I said Tabai to start, just to clarify, Tabai and Dubai. Um, you look at guys like Dwayne Hendricks, obviously first year Lion. Christian Covington's kind of underwhelmed, very much so. Nathan Cherry in the interior and kind of outside, filling a role for the Lions. I think you need to look maybe a little bit, internally and kind of question whether or not this is going to be the group that you want to roll with. I think you definitely have to be, honorable mention to guys like, Dante Williams. I would like to see him come back and be involved in this defense. Anai and Bell, I don't rule them out and like to have them in consideration for sure at the right price and definitely for an affordable, AAV, but we will see come free agency and contract time. We'll be back with a free agency outlook and kind of deep dive into that and whatnot in terms of who's the free agents and who the Lions able to maybe possibly bring back and how much cap space they have, draft picks, all that sort of stuff going into the offseason. But until then, that kind of puts to bed a defensive question or defensive perspective. The last thing from me in terms of storylines from this one, and that is going to be, Buck Pierce and what have been my impressions of Buck Pierce in year one as the man in charge for the BC Lions. There's been some highs, there's been some lows, if we're being honest. I think there's been some really good highs as well, leading arguably the number one offense in the CFL. There's been some lows at times, specifically in this one. A few questionable play calls, maybe, the quarterback draw, as I said earlier. Don't know if I love that one in that situation. Maybe would have liked to see a different situation where you put the ball in Rourke's hands in, some sort of RPO fashion where it's a true run pass option for Rourke on the edge instead of just a true quarterback draw where it's just Nathan Rourke or nothing. But other than that, I mean, you have to give Buck Pierce his kudos and your approval if you're a Lions fan moving forward. He brought back a team to life from 5-7 record, was able to win 6 straight to end the regular season, 7 games in a row with playoffs. And for me, overall, I think this was a very positive first year with Buck Pierce at the helm. Was able to set his foundation moving forward, set his offense with Rourke as his, guy, and we'll see what improvements, what adjustments they make in year two. But going forward, I think Buck Pierce did a good job as a head coach. Does he have some areas to improve on? Absolutely. But so does every head coach going forward, especially in a professional atmosphere. Nobody's perfect, and everyone kind of feels like they have to kind of spend every offseason finding ways to get better and improving. And I think Buck Pierce will take that approach going into this offseason for sure. So for me, I'm excited to see the direction and kind of how they evolve into year two. I think there's, as I said, some improvements to be had in some of those, you know, coaching decisions and some of those, coaching um and some of those, I guess game moments. I forgive me for the word I'm trying to find here. In some of those kind of I guess coaching moments is the right word. But you know, I think this is the right guy for the job for BC going forward. That they found their leader of this club, and alongside Nathan Rourke is going to give them some stability and competitiveness for years to come. So for me, folks, with about 45 minutes in, that is going to basically just about do it. We will have a much bigger conversation about some other topics at a later date. We haven't nailed down that date yet, as the Lions are fresh off a West Final loss. So allow me to breathe, allow me to take a maybe a little break away from some content, some recording for just a few days, folks. Don't worry, I won't be away too long. As I will be recording the weekly show, as always, of course, with the fellas over on the 13th Man YouTube channel. You guys can find that every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Of course, we'll be talking about this one in its entirety, as well as the East Final as well. Huge shout out to Montreal for punching their ticket. There's no surprise, folks. I am going to be on the Montreal bandwagon. I'll say that right now. No offense to Sats, 'cause I know I have a few guys on that squad that I'm rooting for, and would love to see them win a Grey Cup. But no, make no mistake about it. I'm picking Montreal to win. I think they're the best team in the CFL this season and for the last few years. But we will be back after Grey Cup on this channel for a BC Lions outlook, a BC Lions offseason outlook or primer, whatever you kind of want to call it, where we sit down and have a few hard conversations. I'm sure there will be some positives, so that don't not trying to sound it's going to be all doom and gloom, but an off-season primer and outlook, kind of as I mentioned, to get you guys ready for who's going to be the free agents, who are maybe possibly going to be some key free agents to sign, who could you let walk and kind of be okay with. How are the Lions able to approach free agency with the money they have, as well as some other things like what else? I guess draft is probably a little bit too close, too far away to look at. Combine, other things like that, but we'll kind of get into, as I mentioned, an offseason outlook / free agency primer for the BC Lions perspective. And then, of course, folks, give us time. Give us maybe a week or two after Grey Cup. Maybe get into the first week or two of December, and we're going to be back in the saddle, back pumping out podcast episodes. I believe we're awaiting episode 47. We're actually in the works of trying to nail down a few guests to get to episode 50, and then episode 50 we're going to try to line up a big gun, hopefully reeling in one of the big fishes for episode 50. It's going to be a special one on the channel to celebrate. So for me, folks, greatly appreciated you guys tuning in, supporting all season long. Of course, you guys continue to support on the channel by liking today's video, subscribing down below, commenting down below, subscribe to the channel. When you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys get notified each time we go live or upload a video like this one right here. Of course, you guys can find us on our social media platforms on Twitter @_CF Fanatics, and we are also on Instagram @Canadian Football Fanatics as we near 4,000 followers and try to track that down for a big milestone on the channel, and would be greatly appreciated if we hit 4,000. I don't think 5,000 is realistic by 2026, but let's try to gun down 5,000 for the next milestone. Definitely going to be having some content on the channel throughout the next few days in terms of some clips from the post-game report and a few other things, including the Canadian Bowl, which will be taking place today as of the time of this upload. Of course, the post-game report recorded it last night, technically, by the time this is uploaded. I'm going to be uploading the post-game report Sunday morning in time for for you guys to throw it on before Sunday NFL football. And then about halfway through NFL football, halfway through my Buffalo Bills playing the Miami Dolphins, which cakewalk. That's nothing off our chest, to be honest. That's going to be a dub. Hopefully that doesn't come back to haunt me or bite me in the ass. And freezing cold takes or something like that on Twitter gets the best of me. But to get back on track, at some point during your Sunday morning football, the Canadian Bowl will kick off from Saskatoon as the Hilltops host the Okanagan Sun in a battle for the ages and the right to call themselves national champions in the CJFL. I'll definitely probably have some content following that one as we followed the BCFC and CJFL all season long on our channel. So stay tuned to that, folks. But after this one, it's going to be a long break for the off season, basically, as we do have Grey Cup. And as I mentioned, it's not going to be a long break from us, folks, but a long break from football, as there's only going to be 2 games left and then one after the Canadian Bowl ends later today. So appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.